This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. I don't get many voicemail messages. You're probably thinking that whoever left me a voicemail message is perhaps not under 30. Because who is leaving voicemail messages? I barely even use my phone. So it's no knock against the author of this voicemail message. I'm just setting up the scenario. Larry Height. I wake up Monday morning. Larry Height leaves me a voicemail message. So cool. My episode on this podcast, 606, where I compared Jeff Bezos to trend following and made the case that Jeff Bezos is a trend following trader or a trend follower, however you want to phrase it. And Larry left this really short but sweet 30-second message. He was very kind. He said it was a brilliant podcast. And then at the end, he got a little of that Larry in there. And he kind of said, it was effing great. Obviously, I love that rawness. I put a little bit of it on this podcast. But so cool to wake up and know that I made a dent in the mind of a man who has been around the block. I mean, he started the first billion-dollar trend following fund. He has seen his share of ups and downs, and a lot more ups than downs. He's made a bundle. Great career. So it's so cool to wake up and realize that just for a moment, these moments are fleeting. They go away. You can't hang your hat on it. But for a moment, to get a little bit of praise from somebody who knows what he's talking about. So I appreciate that, Larry. I love that. I love getting the feedback. But let's don't stand the Mike is such a great guy angle. Let's get into the fun stuff where someone is calling me a cult leader, delusional, and all kinds of fun stuff. That's where I learn. That's where I get the grist for putting the insights on this podcast to let everyone see the multiple sides, the different facets of the conversation, the argument. Let people see how others think. Maybe they will learn something. Maybe I will learn something. That's the whole damn point. All that set up to a simple little post I put on Facebook in the last few days. It was a picture of the philosopher, Sam Harris, and a quote from Sam Harris. Let me read that quote, one that I really, really like. Quote, "The state of being dogmatic is the state of believing in things strongly despite an absence of evidence or even in the face of counter-evidence. That is the state of having no error-correcting mechanisms in your worldview. You're simply not available to reality, and you will continually bump into hard objects wherever you go," end quote. Now, for my conservative friends that know something about Sam Harris, perhaps that raises a red flag and they don't like me for the moment because maybe they don't like Sam Harris. Sam Harris will typically have more left-leaning views. But one of my favorite videos, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, one of my favorite videos is The Four Horsemen with Richard Dawkins, Dan Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, and Sam Harris. If you've not yet spent a couple hours to watch that on YouTube, you should go watch it. 4 very bright skeptics. And that's what I love being. I want to be a skeptic. I want to be a skeptic of whatever comes into my purview. I want to be a skeptic of myself. I want to tear it all apart. What is the essence? What is real? What is not real? What is a bias? What is just pure fear? Such a great line from Sam Harris. And you would think, and I got some positive feedback on posting that, you would think if someone came at me because they didn't like that, it would be more of a political type situation. Maybe they would say, Mike, you're dogmatic about some political view. Okay, I could see that. I mean, politics is pretty divided these days. But I didn't expect the trading disagreement. Very quickly, and Ann Yoshi responds, Thanks for sharing, Covel. This is the Sam Harris quote. She says, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing, Covel. Sounds like an accurate description of you. Okay. Is it an accurate description of my most recent 225,000 word book, Trend Following, that came out in 2017? Is it an accurate description of the 600 plus podcast episodes here, or my 5,000 plus blog entries? What is the accurate description? That I'm dogmatic? So what do I believe so strongly about where there's no evidence? All this content, all these guests, all these traders, and even Nobel Prize winners I've been able to converse with, share conversations, learn, and grow. But this lady thinks that I'm being dogmatic. Now, of course, I'm sitting there in the catbird seat. I'll play along for a little while. You never know. It might be interesting. Sometimes trolling behavior reveals really interesting insights. But my first thought was, what is she talking about? And I said, why do I get critics who can't outline their views? All she said so far, out of the gate, you're dogmatic, which means basically everything you think is bullshit, is what she said. Now, she might say, oh, you're putting words in my mouth. No, if you're responding to a quote from Sam Harris that says dogmatic is the state of believing in things so strongly, even though there's an absence of evidence or even in the face of counter evidence. So if she calls me dogmatic, basically it's everything I do in my life is nonsense. One of the posters on Facebook immediately responded, she just proved your point. Indeed, she did. And I responded back. I said, I'm open to the idea that I'm the very person that Sam Harris describes in his quote. But if someone says I'm that, while not offering why exactly I am that, I've been to that rodeo before. We all have. And that's the point of going down this exercise today. Let me set up my critic, though. She has a Facebook profile with 2 fake pictures. There's no posts on her Facebook profile. A couple people that have said happy birthday over the last 5 years. Literally a blank slate. I'm friends with this person. How I became friends, who knows? I don't recall any interactions. I don't know anything about this person. And generally, when you see a Facebook profile like that, it's best to assume it's a fake person, or they're hiding their identity. It's an alias. They're disguising who they are for whatever reason. Very normal course of events for a lot of people on this planet. I'm not really sure why, because you get so much more by being real. You get so much more by being a real person with real views, not hiding behind some digital wall pretending to be somebody or something. I've been to these rodeos before. I've seen trolls before. I get it. And responds, well, some smart people have been shouting that about you for years. And if you had just some basic introspect capabilities, you wouldn't have been so oblivious. But let me articulate it for you as simply as I can, just to give you food for thought. Hopefully you'll think about it instead of dismissing it like you usually do. First of all, your books are really nice. They're like the Bibles of trend following. That said, just like the Bible, they showcase information about trend following that people are supposed to take at face value. I mean, your numbers are really compelling. They might prove a point to the layman, but to people who have a background in statistics and science, all your books do is showcase your own confirmation bias in ways that are all too self-evident. You cherry pick and torture your numbers too much, which results in them telling you whatever you want to hear and whatever you want people to believe. Also, you don't give too much thought to ideas and numbers that dismiss trend following as a viable strategy, however valid. When you make a case for something, if you want to do a serious work, it's always a good idea to explore contradicting ideas and tackle the numbers as they are, not as you would like them to be. But that's exactly what you do. When I read your book, it seems that you have an agenda, and you do it so eloquently that it appears like real math, real science. Congrats on your writing skills, by the way. You are a true storyteller, but that's all. To quote Daniel Kahneman, not seeing your own biases is a bias in and of itself. I don't have the desire to write an essay here, so I'll give you a basic overview. I hope this clarifies the point, but here's an advice. Read people's negative reviews of your books once in a while. You might learn something new. Personally, I put your books in the self-help category. They're great at that. Are they thorough, unbiased academic pieces of work? No, sir. Boy, that's a lot to unpack there. Not a specific fucking thing there. What data am I torturing? What data am I cherry picking? What am I not dismissing? What am I not considering? My newest 2017 edition of Trend Following, for example, has contributions from multiple physicists, very, very bright people, very wise academics. I don't have to drop names here. Everyone can see who's in the book. Everyone can see who is interviewed. Everyone can see who has contributed. But let me really take a big macro perspective here for a moment. This isn't about me feeling bad or hurt that somebody has some mean things to say or some nice things to say or whatever. It's trying to get to some truth. Okay, this lady, or it could be a guy for all I know, under an alias, wants to debate me, wants to get into the meat of it, says I am dogmatic by Sam Harris's definition, but puts nothing on the table. What are you supposed to think? Why do people argue like this? Like if you're a young person right now and you're listening, and you hear another person arguing like this, for example, how she came at me, don't do it like that. If you think, for example, I have cherry-picked something, well, tell me what it is. Let's have a discussion about that. But don't play the emotional game or allude to something that you think people are supposed to understand. This is that academic ego thing that comes into play. And look, I'm very upfront about it. I was a terrible college student. I didn't give a shit. I had no interest. And I suspect out there somewhere, there are academics or grad students that have a lot more education, the formal academic education, than I do. And perhaps they don't like the fact that somebody without the credentials sells hundreds of thousands of books on a very interesting topic. I can get that. I can get that in my gut. And that's what it kind of feels like here. I can't really say that at this point in the conversation, and I did not say it, but that at a gut level feel is what is going on. So I came back and I asked her, I said, hey, you've read the 2017 edition of Trend Following. No response. I said, hey, you saw the interview section, section 2 of the new Trend Following book. The research section, section 3 of the new Trend Following book. No response. I then said, hey, let's take me out of the equation. David Harding, Jean-Philippe Bouchot, Campbell Harvey, Lasse Peterson, they all torture the numbers too? No response. What numbers are being tortured? No response. I ask these questions, simple questions, that anybody who wants to walk into a debate, anybody who wants to have a back and forth, they should be happy to answer. She's the one that told me from the top, I'm dogmatic. By Sam Harris's definition, I don't see where I'm dogmatic. I might be forceful. I might be strong-willed. I might be an occasional asshole. I could be all of those things. But I try my level-headed best to be objective. And I have fortunately had this great edifice to push against for the last 20 years. The efficient market hypothesis, this great big wall, think Roger Waters, think that wall, this great big wall supported by Wall Street's commission fee structure. I've had the opportunity to push against that with this really interesting trading strategy with a ton of real world objective data spread across so many traders, so many decades, hell, going back centuries. Go look at the performance histories that AQR, Capital Fund Management, ISAM, Larry Hyde's firm, go look at how far back, 100, 200, 800 years, they've gone back to assemble trend following performance. In fact, just in the last few days, I have added an absolute ton of new material to my trend following website the historical kind of material that you don't see everywhere, from the likes of Henry Clews, Arthur Cutton, Gerald Loeb, Nicholas Darvis, these names from the past that laid the trend-following foundation. So look, even though she's a little upset, or he is a little upset, a little angry, wants to call me names, wants to tell me this, that, I just come back with questions. Give me the answers to these questions so I can better understand your frame. Where do you sit? Because if you can't address the questions of, does David Harding torture the data? Does Jean-Philippe Bouchot torture the data? These are some pretty accomplished people, pretty well respected. No response. But her next response was fabulous. I think this is the first time ever I've been called this. To quote Anne, exactly what I thought. You hear nothing, and I hope you realize that. No, wait, you don't. Refer to Harris's quote again. Cheers. She's not done, though. She comes back and she says, you display qualities of a cult leader, Covel. Start interviewing people who disagree with you more often, and then maybe I'll start to take your work seriously. Until then, nope, you're just a self-help guru. So we've now gone from dogmatic to cult leader. I'm right there next to Charlie Manson, Jim Jones, and the Heaven's Gate Nike tennis shoes cult out of San Diego. Apparently, that's where I'm at. Now, this went back and forth for a little bit longer. Her ad hominems got stronger and stronger and stronger. I called her a sock puppet, which is what you typically call anonymous trolls. That's pretty standard issue stuff. If someone's going to come at you and throw ad hominem, you're a troll. If you're hiding behind some alias, you're a troll. We've all seen this stuff. But what's so cool about her accusations? What I love about these types of debates. It's like a Seinfeld episode. There was nothing there. Covel, you're delusional. Covel, you're dogmatic. Covel, you're a cult leader. Covel, you torture the data. Covel, you write nice prose, but it's all self-help nonsense. The lesson you want to take away from these types of interactions is a filtering mechanism. Because what I want younger people to see, and even older people, not everyone's opinion is deserving. Not everyone's view is deserving. What I tried to do when I first got into this space, so to speak, I would approach and listen. Approach and experiment. Approach and investigate. As I told Mikhail Gorbachev one time, I got very good at digging. Literally 20 years of digging, getting behind the scenes, seeing how some of the most accomplished players think, act, and execute. And taking all of that information in to draw the best conclusions I can, and putting those conclusions across this podcast, across my books. I love to do that. But the takeaway for all of us from this interaction is not that Mike Covel has hurt feelings. I think that was one of her counters to me. Oh, I hurt your feelings. Somebody's not listening to this podcast if she thinks she hurt my feelings. But the point is to develop a system. My big picture point on this episode, develop a system for dealing with people, dealing with opinion. The people that hide, that typically starts right from the beginning. This person was hiding behind a digital alias. The people that hide their identity, the people that hide what they're even talking about, the people that insinuate, the people that assume, presume, the people that really don't want to get specific. This is classic cut your losses. Of course, I ultimately did cut my losses on this particular individual. But that's what we need to do because there is too much information. I mean, somebody could argue, Mike, you wasted your time with this exercise. Well, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but it's a good reminder. Just like we need a trading system to trade the markets, we need a system for dealing with humanity. Otherwise, we're going to get caught up in constant noise, constant information. The people that you want around you are the people that give and the people that take, back and forth. Honorable people, real people. I'm sure there's generations right now that are going through their life with friends that are entirely made up. They're sock puppets, literally sock puppets. People with false identities, false names, and they pretend to be somebody. And I'm sure, sadly, many people think they're real people. This is going to be a struggle as we all go forward. It's always going to be a good combination of having that on-the-ground experience, being able to say, I shook the hand of Larry Hite, I broke bread with Larry Hite, and then if I want to talk with Larry 8,000 miles away, it's a more real conversation. We know what flesh and blood is. Oh, I almost forgot. When I got to the end of the conversation with Ann, she finally fessed up. She said that this was her real name. Doubtful when you look at that Facebook profile. But she finally said, "Oh, I've not read your book." So here I am going through this long conversation, trying to find out, have you seen the detail? Have you read the detail? Have you looked at the meat and potatoes? And finally, she just says, I haven't read the book. Isn't it crazy like that? Typically, the people that come out of the woodwork and accuse the other person of confirmation bias, accuse the other person of cognitive dissonance, accuse the other person of being delusional or dogmatic. It's always the person that's doing the accusing who's most guilty, right? Every damn time. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.